In the oneness, in the wholeness, sharing higher consciousness. What does it mean, higher consciousness? What does it mean to become of conscious mind? What does it mean to become of higher mind? And we speak about higher consciousness, and yet the answers are held deep within. When ones think about becoming higher in anything, if you will, higher awareness, moving forward, moving outward, moving beyond what one already knows. And yet, consciousness truly lies deep within one's being. Now, it sounds like a contradiction, truly, but it is not. We often ask, where were you before physical life, if you will? Where were you before physical body? And we also ask, where do you go, or who do you become after physical form, after physical life, if you will, using very gentle words? Most would agree that one's soul, that one is one's soul, that the soul leaves the physical body, leaves the physical realm, and becomes one in the oneness, in the wholeness, in the consciousness of pure, brilliant light, pure love in the sense of such pureness, it is difficult to comprehend the beauty and the joy and the well-being and the peacefulness and the passion. Ones would agree that when ones leave a physical form, they become consciousness in the oneness, meaning all things of higher consciousness, all things of purity, all things of love and light. So if ones would agree, most would agree, would ones then agree that before one enters physical form, physical being, before feet upon Mother Earth, that one was light, love in its purest form, and higher consciousness, consciousness on a pure form in the oneness, in the wholeness? So then it would hold true that if one's soul is light, love, in the purest sense, in the deepest sense, and one's soul resides in the physical body, then it would hold true that higher consciousness is truly held within. But when we think about higher consciousness, we think about mind, truly. We think about one's being, who one truly is. So if ones would agree, ones are light and love in the purest sense, one's soul is eternal. One's soul is the oneness, is divine creation, part of the piece of the whole. One's then would understand the intensity of compassion, the intensity of the love, the intensity of kindness. So all towards oneself and to others and to Mother Earth. So why is it that ones would come equipped, if you will, with the purest sense of love, the purest sense of compassion, the purest sense of oneness, the purest sense of light, the purest sense of kindness, the purest sense of all that is the miracle part of divine creation? Why then would one's not be able to express it? Why would one's not be able to show compassion to oneself and to another? Why would one's not ever feel loved or that they could love? Why would one's be unkind to any one thing? Why would it happen? Ones don't come in and sort of leave it at the door before the entry to Mother Earth. Doesn't that seem absurd? Most would agree ones hold within the beauty of all that is, the beauty of one's soul. Would a soul condemn? Absurd. Would the heavens condemn? Absurd. So why then would ones, upon entry to walk their journey of life on this realm in physical form, why would it not be shared? Where would the consciousness go? And we have often said, underneath layers of human experience is a love so grand it is light. So it truly does not go anywhere. Ones have within higher consciousness at its purest form, but it is the layers of human existence. It is the conditioning. It is the experience. It is in the surroundings. It is others sculpting others with their own beliefs. It is belief systems already set in place before the little one arrives. So the little one arrives into a family that has their own belief systems on how they are going to nurture or raise the little one into adulthood. And then when one reaches adulthood, they take that conditioning, they take that belief system, and then they place it onto their little one that comes in, and the cycle continues. Now again, depending on which part of the world you have come into, the conditioning would be very, very different, would it not? Would it not? So all souls are in the purest sense of pure. Difficult to find a word. Difficult to find a word that is so captivating of the, we want to say, miracle. So ones come into physical form equipped with higher consciousness, equipped with love, equipped with compassion. And then what? The sculpting begins. the conditioning begins. The experiences begin. Harsh judgment begins. Harsh judgment begins. Unkind words from others, perhaps siblings, perhaps well-meaning loved ones. There is so much condemning that takes place when the little ones arrive, and ones aren't truly aware of it because ones are living in their own belief system. They are living to what they know to be the truth. And it is only when ones start walking their journey where they start to look at the awareness, they start to look at the level of compassion, they start to look at the place of higher consciousness. Where is one on the ladder of higher consciousness? And we don't mean it's a ladder to be walked up rung by rung, but what we do mean it is an awareness to become the greatest part of you. So ones feel that they are moving up to become more enlightened, if you will, and yet they have to go and remove the layers to find the higher consciousness that one already holds. Interesting, is it not? Is it not? So we are suggesting ones remove the layers to find their inner essence deep within their being. And at the same time, when ones think of higher consciousness, they think about moving upward. They think about moving upward. So truly one is going inward to go outward. And that is why we often say, your light is held within, you shine it forth to others. So all your brilliance is held within your physical form, and yet you share it in the oneness, in the wholeness of divine creation, for you are divine creation. So you are finding the pureness of who you are to extend forth to find your higher consciousness. So ones are traveling their journey, and they've had plenty of experience with others, from the schooling, the education, to ones around the community being exposed to the belief systems of the community, of the society. And then they reach a space where they are truly, and we want to just say it, unhappy. They reach a space where there is so much condemning upon oneself and others that they are truly unhappy because they have spent their time year after year after year beating upon oneself. If ones could just stop beating upon oneself, higher consciousness would be felt. For when one stops beating upon oneself, would that be not nourishing and loving and compassion and kindness? The space that would be created for one to love oneself, and it is not a bunch of fluff and BS. Be very mindful in your day of how often your words are condemning to oneself or to another, both detrimental to one's physical being, one's mind, one's heart. Just be very mindful from the very small thing to the very large thing that one would condemn themselves for. Perhaps it is something that one has done and has not forgiven oneself, or they have not forgiven another. Beating upon the other instead of forgiving, finding condemnation in the other, finding anger, resentment, hatred sometimes for the other, all being carried around, all the layers that cover up one's inner love, inner essence of brilliance. Ones beat themselves up so much they can't even see their brilliance, and they cannot feel love. They have put a wall up so high around them that love cannot get in and love cannot extend. And ones will feel this is a very safe place to be, and oftentimes a wall is needed to stop the hurt coming forth, to prevent others from hurting them. The wall, a metaphor. But there is a time where ones start to feel the heaviness of not being able to feel the love that they are preventing. They're not feeling the hurt. They're not getting close to another, let us just say. They're not sending out their own love in fear of becoming hurt. But they're not experiencing the feeling of love. How many truly enjoy their, we want to say, their beloved pet's company over their people around them company? How often? And many who are truly fond, in love with animals. There are many who do not feel the safe place with other humans. And it is because the animal, a cat, a dog, fill in the blank, the animal provides the unconditional love. The animal never says an unkind word. The animal, the beloved pet, would never condemn. All they do is show the other unconditional love. There is no judgment. There is no judgment. Have you ever seen a beautiful, beloved pet say, well, I'm with this human, but I don't like the look of them. Their ears are too big. I don't like this, I don't like that. It would be absurd. It would be absurd. And yet the pet owner, if you will, perhaps will look at their own reflection and condemn oneself because they feel their ears are too big. They feel they do not fit into the perfection, if you will, of their understanding of. For if one's ears were to be very big, and the bigger the ear, the more grand one is, ones would then praise they had large ears. And we're only using an example, but as an example of great truth. Who sets the bar? Who says what one should look like? Each soul, each being, perfection, beating upon themselves, beating upon themselves. Why? Why? Why would they feel that they are not as perfect as her beloved pet? And even if the beloved pet, even if their ears were a little bit too big, in one's understanding of it all, they would never condemn. They would playfully pet the animal and say, oh, I love you and your big ears. I love you. Ones have a difficult time conveying that type, that kind, that expression of love to others. Why? Have you ever pondered why? There are times ones are condemned for loving an animal more than they love people. It's still condemning. It's still condemnation. If ones could find the brilliance that one holds to know of the grand light, knowing the oneness, knowing divine creations, there are no mistakes. So, higher consciousness. It begins with the understanding of gentleness. It begins with the understanding of deep love for oneself. For if one does not have deep love for oneself, it is difficult to love others. It is. Because one, again, is shining from within outwards. And if one does not feel that they truly are in love with themselves, that they do not hold themselves in any high regard, how could that be set forth? The vibration that is set forth is insecurity, feeling less than, feeling beaten, perhaps shying away from people, not wanting the condemnation. And yet, the same ones that do not want condemnation from another will spend many, we want to say hours in a day, beating upon oneself. They don't want it from another. They don't want to be hurt by another. But yet, ones are hurting themselves. Ones are hurting themselves, not understanding what they hold within, not understanding the layers that has covered one's brilliance. So ones walk their journey, and now they are understanding the burden is too great. They're heavy in heart, burdened with anger, frustration, loneliness perhaps, just burdened from carrying around all the harsh judgment. And one decides to find a pathway to higher consciousness. How would one go about doing that? First, they would recognize that there is a pathway to higher consciousness. They would understand on the pathway to higher consciousness, the scenery changes to very loving words to oneself, loving words to mankind, loving words to Mother Nature, Mother Earth. Love. Ones would understand if they were to choose the pathway of higher consciousness. Ones would understand that the scenery changes to gentle love. Hard to get used to, is it not, when ones have not been experiencing that pathway? So, one set out higher consciousness pathway, knowing the scenery changes to love. Now they walk along on their pathway, and yet they're expressing love. They have found a place to express love to oneself. They have found a place to express love to others. They have found a place to let go of what they've been carrying around. They don't want to take they don't want to take their suitcase filled with anger with them down their pathway of higher consciousness. When one starts out on the pathway, it truly feels that all baggage is left at the gate. So you would want to enter into the pathway, again, a metaphor, but you want to enter. And before the gates can open, you are of great understanding that anger has to be left behind. Resentment has to be left behind. Harsh judgments has to be left behind. You cannot take with you anything that would burden you in your travel. You have to let it go so you can be free, so you can walk freely and happily. You can skip along the pathway of higher consciousness, but you cannot skip along to higher consciousness dragging it all with you. Dragging it all with you like shackles around your ankles, dragging all the unwanted emotions, all the unwanted burdens. Path to higher consciousness does not allow it. So you leave all your baggage at the gate. You leave it all. And you start your journey. And each step you are knowing that love must come forth for the scenery to continue becoming more vibrant. For the scenery to continue being expansive and glorious. Every step one must be knowing of the love for oneself, the love for others, the love for the journey itself. Now, as they move along, they start to understand that compassion has to be in each step as well. So once one sort of get down the rhythm of the love in each step, now they go and they find, if you will, go within, and they find the compassion to be added to each step. Walk along a little more, understanding that the greater compassion, the grander the scenery, getting closer and closer and closer to higher consciousness. The whole scenery is unfolding in vibrant color and expansion and creativity and passion and oneness and beauty beyond measure. And then as ones freely look about in their world of freedom, they see that kindness is what creates the light to become even more expansive. The light to become as pure as ones could imagine. And then one keeps walking with the love, compassion, and kindness, forgiveness towards all, especially oneself, right into the space of where the feeling is, of where ones were before they arrived in physical form. We are using a metaphor, the pathway to higher consciousness. The pathway to higher consciousness. So if ones have within the purest sense of love, the highest sense of compassion, and they go on a journey to bring it forth, what would it feel like? What would it feel like to live on the pathway of higher consciousness? Wouldn't it be grand? Wouldn't it be grand to see the world that is just shining in light? Wouldn't it be grand to feel your heart expand into the love and the oneness? Wouldn't it be grand to know that an unkind word would never be heard, spoken, or received? Imagine the freedom that higher consciousness brings, and imagine what the scenery looks like. Imagine what the scenery looks like with every step. You create a scenery even more expansive than before the step was taken. And you keep traveling and you keep traveling, and every step you look around into the vastness of all that is, almost walking into the gates of heaven, if you will. What would it look like? What would your day look like if you chose the path of higher consciousness? There are some that want to make the travel, but they have lived so long carrying all the baggage, if you will. They have lived so long to the shackles tied to their ankles, weighing them down so there's no movement at all. They cannot take the step. And when one arrives to the gates, well, before you can enter, you must remove those shackles. You cannot walk along the pathway of higher consciousness with shackles. You have to get the key and you have to remove them. Oh, no, what do you mean I have to remove them? I've had them for so long, they're part of who I am. I'll just enter the gate anyway. It's just part of me. I'll just enter the gate. No, you cannot enter the gate with those shackles. You cannot enter the gate carrying around the anger. You cannot. You just cannot. Because once you enter the gate, still holding all the baggage of anger, resentment, fill in the blank, whatever ones are carrying, heartache, suffering, feeling less than, feeling unworthy, having the shackles around their ankles. How far do you think ones would travel once they enter the gate if they started off holding on to it anyway? Ones don't get very far, do they? It would be impossible to walk the pathway of higher consciousness, dragging it all with you. The path would never change. You would never change. You would not be able to have the experience of freedom. You would not see the scenery change. You could not move. There would be no steps to be taken. It just wouldn't be. Ponder. Ponder these words. Ponder how kind you have been to yourself this day. Truly, truly be mindful. Truly pay attention. You want to be on the pathway of higher consciousness. It starts at the gate where you make the choice to let it all go. There is great love for you.